Right then, welcome back to the channel. Stephen Howson, FA Cup final preview. And yeah, my mood is exactly the same as you lot. Now I'm going to try and look at how we might have a chance at winning this game. But the odds are not in our favour for this one, are they? City are in search of a successive domestic double, having secured an unprecedented fourth title last weekend. They continue on their path to glory, flawless, innocent path to glory, and I won't have anything said otherwise against them. Now, United ended our Premier League campaign with back-to-back victories against Newcastle and Brighton, but we finished 8th. With constant murmurings around Ten Hag's future, including this week, which I think is an absolute joke. If United were to win, we secure a place in the Europa League if we win the trophy. Including in last season's final, United have lost our last 3 meetings with City, who do go into this having won 7 of their previous 12 FA Cup finals, and could secure back-to-back wins for the very first time. Now, how do they play? Now, it's been actually quite interesting. More so last season, I don't think there's been quite as much innovation from Pep this season. I think it's almost stalled a little bit for him. And I think that's why you've seen almost human performances from City this season. But it's a 3-2-4-1-ish sort of makeup. So rather than having 2 centre-backs at the back and freeing up wing-backs to move forward into the final third, you sort of see Ruben Dias holding that central position at the back, and then you'll see Akanji, Vardiol, Ake playing a little bit like traditional fullbacks. And it's very much a throwback formation to a little bit from what my understanding is of the WM formation that Busby might have employed, where you'd have a centre-half and a full-back, and then you have like half-backs, or, Rodri would be sort of the Duncan Edwards kind of role, just in front of the defence a little bit. In practice, it means that the team defends with 4 defenders. And obviously, you've got that new position that Stones kind of occupies again. It's like a right half-back or something. Ruben Dias is the one that's going to try and go 1v1 on the opposition forward. And as he remains central, protecting that area of the pitch, Rodri will hold his position in front of that wide back three with either Akanji or Kovacic or someone like that close to him. Akanji has been used in that Stones role a little bit due to Stones' lack of fitness, and Akanji doesn't quite perform to the same level. So if it is Akanji in that area, it's a little bit of a bonus for us because Stones is excellent sort of Rodri level of passing in that area, and that's a real problem for us. Now, to the left of Rodri, you would be looking at Foden occupying the left half space, KDB occupying the right half space, and Haaland up front as a pressing forward who tries to occupy both opposing centre-halves, who are generally reluctant to step up in fear of his speed, and that creates a little bit of space in between the lines, which is what City tend to thrive in. Now, the position of them 3 midfielders is very similar to how a team would operate in a 4-3-3. With 1 runner, 1 playmaker, 1 holding midfielder. And when the team is in possession of the ball, Kovacic, Rodri tend to operate in the middle of the pitch, staying nice and close together. But in the structure, Rodri remains largely in the centre of the park, but he can move a little bit left and a little bit in towards the half space, meaning Kovacic is responsible for a little bit of balance and holding on the right, kind of deeper half space area as well. When they're in the position of the double pivot, City create a bit of a defensive block that's quite hard to penetrate through because, the likes of Rodri, he's a bit of a unit. And you can't really just run through them. And, you've got to be bloody good to pass through them. And what ends up happening is you get a lot of numerical superiority in the centre of the park when they have the ball. And even when they don't have the ball, they work centrally and then force you out a little bit. The rotation of Rodri and Kovacic, makes it nice and fluid, gives them another dimension in and out of possession. Rodri's really pivotal to how City retain possession and maintain control in the build-up. They love just hitting him with a bounce, and he will go and bounce it. I don't know if it's an instruction. It wouldn't surprise me if it was an instruction of Pep, where it's like, everybody in the defensive half of the pitch, take the ball and go and do a bounce pass with every single one of those. Just go and find Walker, get me back. Go. Just go to every single player and bounce. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point Pep has said that to Rodri, because that's how it looks to me. Like, he's just constantly moving the ball around. And I find when you move the ball around to the level that they do like that. Now, if you're a team that maybe holds onto the ball individually and then passes it, and then that guy holds onto it individually, and then that guy holds onto it individually, you can encourage a team to pressure. But when the ball is bounce, 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 3 or 4 of them, people don't pressure no more. They don't pressure anymore because they know they're not going to catch the ball. And when you're playing on one, you can't be pressed. So I find that they do, that control of the tempo like that is like the biggest thing you have to get over when playing against City. In the final third, wingers like to stay high and wide, chalk on the boots. Reason for that is Pep wants you to engage them. So if you engage them with your fullbacks in a flat back four, you're creating space in between your fullback and the near side centre half. That's an area that he's looking to exploit. He's going to see underlapping runs and penetration into that area, looking for a little pass round the corner. The best iterations of the Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Manchester City versions of Pep teams is where the wingers haven't really ran with the ball too often. And what they'll do is they'll find someone on a nice little reverse to the inside, and then that person will play a cutback, or they'll play a 1-2. They'll have someone run on the inside, they'll play them the ball, and then they'll run on the inside as everyone around them defending just goes like, what's going on? But that's the best iteration. I didn't think Grealish made a lot of sense for them. And even though the likes of Doku are getting a bit of a rave because they're a dribbler and direct with it, I don't think that they're the best iteration of what Manchester City, I've seen at least, are. You do occasionally see rotations. They're not overly asked about whether it's, let's look at the right-hand side, Walker or Silva or KDB in that area. Which one is the widest? It doesn't matter. They'll rotate in that little three, and there'll always be someone else different popping up. The most important thing is occupying each one of the 5 sort of channels across the pitch. As long as people are doing that, Pep's pretty happy. So it's all about keeping it fluid and keeping it moving and not standing still. And obviously you got the focal point there in Haaland, which again I don't think really suits what City are about. I think they've been better with other players in that area. Now, obviously, he comes and scores a fuckload of goals because that's what he does. But I still don't think that they're quite as optimal as I've seen them when it's, for example, a Messi in the middle of it here, because I think that's harder to defend against than Haaland is. But anyway, star man for City, Phil Foden probably. I think it's the best season of his career so far. 27 goals, 11 assists is outrageously good. He's dangerous in the centre and occasionally leave a lot of space. He carries the ball nice and he's hard to deal with in the final third. I think he's a big concern for United this weekend. United starting 11. So this is obviously injury dependent, and that could go so many different ways. I think he's going to play Casemiro centre-half, and I think that's wild. I would go with Wan-Bissaka right-back, Dalot left-back. I would go with Martinez and Evans. The reason Evans over anybody else, I think that Evans has just got a better defending instinct than everybody else that we've got, and he's going to be required to have that defending instinct. If he's not fit, you can't play him. And I guess you go with Maguire or Casemiro. But I think the attributes that Johnny Evans has, you play him in that position, ideally. I think it'll be Casemiro alongside Martinez, though. That's what I really think. You need mobility, and you need people who can read the game really well. And that is a weakness of Maguire's, and that is a weakness of Casemiro's, and that's why I would go with Johnny Evans. Now, do we think Varane's got it in him to play? Now, obviously, we saw him a little bit against Brighton, but does that mean he's fit, or is he one of the people that was getting called out? I don't know. If Varane's an option, Varane's the option. There's no denials, and he has to play. And is Luke Shaw fit? I know he's in the England squad. Why is he not available? If Luke Shaw's available, there's probably too many people with injury doubts to start the game, I think. You want some match fitness and some match rhythm. I do go with Amrabat because it is the sort of game where you're up against it. You just need someone who's going to dig in and be happy doing that. Amrabat alongside Mainu. I go with... Big decision this. Do I go Bruno down the middle or do I put him off the right? I go Bruno down the middle. Ask him to play deeper. I go Ahmad off the right. Garnacho. And Højlund. Starman for United, I think Bruno Fernandes. First point of contact in transition. He's got the range. He's got the ability to find someone. It's got to be him. His ball retention and distribution have to be at their best. Ideally, I would put him on Rodri and have him just sort of buzz around him and try and make himself a bit of a nuisance. And see if he can come up with a goal. If United score first, and I know we scored first last time, but if United score first, we've got half a chance. If it's anything like... I'll even give them the first 30 minutes. If City score in the first 30 minutes, yeah, it's a long day for us. But anyway... It is the FA Cup final, and our friends at Paramatch UK will be offering new customers a very special offer. And they're giving you £30 in free bets just for placing £5 on the match. So to claim the offer, all you've got to do is make a Paramatch account, opt in on the promotion, and make sure that your first deposit, whether it's by a debit card or Apple Pay, and then place a £5 bet on the FA Cup final at odds of even or above. As always, you've got to be over 18 and a UK resident. Full terms and conditions do apply. With all the links that you need in the description. Thanks to Paramatch for sponsoring this video and for sponsoring us for the entire season as well. How do we beat them? You got to play on the counter. Now, if it's Walker at right back, you have to try and think of something where you're not running up against Walker because you don't win. He's unbelievable in that recovery role. So you got to be smart with it. You can't just run him. It's not going to work like that. It's not Cancelo where you can run him and you can get the better of him. You can't just run him down. You got to find another way around him. You either have to maybe go Højlund up against Diaz, maybe Ahmad up against Vardiol, something like that. You can't go in a foot race against Kyle Walker because you're going to lose. So you have to find a way to get in behind that defence because it is a high line and they will start on the halfway line. If you can attack down our right, or capitalise on a mistake from a press maybe, that's how you're going to get in behind. Secondly, you do need to be aware of Vardiol, but it's also an area to attack if you're smart. He's become a bit of a threat down that left-hand side, almost like a left winger, sort of arriving late a little bit at times. If you make him defend, it's going to take away the threat that he offers with the ball. But there's an opportunity there for if he gets a little bit excited, you can break. You've got to be unbelievably direct, though. Just completely direct. I wouldn't do any lateral ball in there at all. Just get it forward and just attack with absolute blistering pace. Genuinely. And then I would look mid-block, zonal pressing, be very pragmatic, get behind the ball. United don't have the personnel to man-mark City out of possession. We don't have the personnel to aggressively press high and win the ball back in those areas. And I actually don't think we can sit in a low block either because I don't think we have the personnel that can effectively do that, or the practice at doing that. So I think the best course of action is almost somewhere in the middle. That's zonal marking, mid-block, try and push the line up a little bit without being right on the halfway line, and try and choke the middle of the pitch where City are going to want to try and play. Basically mark and patrol those sort of centre zones. That's that middle third of the pitch, essentially. That's where City try and play their football. If you force them into going long, Dalot's pretty quick, Wan-Bissaka's rapid, Martinez is pretty quick. You can do something there, and you want them to be putting sort of percentage balls in behind a little bit, because even though that's how I think United should attack, United will be attacking 50 metres of space from the halfway line. If you can make them try and put a ball over where you're only 10 yard outside the box, 5 yard outside the box, but you're outside the box, you can't sit in the box, you've got to clear the box. And if they're trying to clip one over there, if it's not an inch perfect ball and an inch perfect pass, Onana's going to be up and onto it. So try and make them play those balls a little bit, and you'll stifle them. It isn't parking the bus, it's squeezing the centre of the pitch, and trying to force City to try and play through what should be congested or over, where you need that little bit more accuracy. And the key in this isn't to sort of sit deep. It's kind of be high enough where you can recover the ball a little bit, and there's less distance to travel in your transition. So, and also it invites pressure a little bit. And City are absolutely fantastic at just keeping the ball, recycling it left to right, and just waiting for you to make a mistake. They must practice that almost all day, every day. They are very, very comfortable with you being inside the box and them just passing it around the outside for 100 passes at a time. They will have no qualms about doing that whatsoever. So you've got to make them uncomfortable. You can't sink into a low block and let them have it. You have to keep constantly trying to squeeze that line higher and higher and higher and higher, taking some risks with the offsides as much as you can. You know, you've got VAR in your corner. Just be fucking ruthless and aggressive with it. You've seen how Aston Villa have done it this season. Do it a bit like that. Real fucking aggressive offside calls, and see if you can catch them. And then they'll get desperate with those passes, and they'll get desperate with trying to force it through the middle. And, you know, you'll keep it away from the goal. If you allow them into the box, they're good enough to beat one man. And as we saw with Phil Foden, you can kind of hit one from 20 yard out or so, and it might fly in. You're not doing that from 35 and 40 yard out. So there's a difference between where you're going to allow them to be and how you're going to allow them to defend. So you make United very narrow, 15, 20 metres from the last centre half to Højlund and everybody else in between. Either 4-1-4-1 or 4-4-2. And just absolutely squeeze the life out of them. Very narrow, make them have to try and play through those legs. And then as soon as you get the ball, the lads have got to be just fucking bomb bursting everywhere. But that's how you beat them. And a little bit of luck. And maybe some shit refereeing decisions. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Who knows? I'm at 13%. Where are you? See you in the next one. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.